Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty, streaming online at foxnews.com. I'm your host, Judge Andrew Napolitano, here defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. The Federal Reserve, that super secretive institution that controls our economy and monetary system, is coming under tremendous pressure these days, and rightfully so. The Fed's chairman, Ben Bernanke, has been nominated to serve a second term as chairman of America's central bank. However, the storyline here is not necessarily his nomination, but the increased scrutiny and exposure of the Fed's manipulation in our lives, of the dollar, of the economy, and the Fed's potential secret deals with global central banks that will happen because of his nomination. Congressman Ron Paul's bill to audit the Fed, a bill Congressman Paul has been championing for many, many years, is now on the floor of the House of Representatives, and the Fed is frightened by its prospects. Ben Bernanke is warning, basically threatening, that an audit of the Federal Reserve could prove detrimental to economic reform and recovery. Joining me now is Professor Robert Higgs, Senior Fellow in Political Economy at the Independent Institute and editor of the Independent Review. His most recent book is Neither Liberty Nor Safety: Fear, Ideology, and the Growth of Government. And his latest article is A Reader's Guide to Ben Bernanke's Preemptive Attack, which you can read on LewRockwell.com. Professor Higgs is also the author of the classic Crisis and Leviathan, which is the most authoritative chronicle there is on the growth of big government in America. Professor Higgs, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge.
What is Ben Bernanke afraid of that we might learn about him or the Federal Reserve during his confirmation hearings over in the Senate?
I suspect he's most afraid that people will find out more about why the Federal Reserve has been used not to make a general monetary policy to, say, change the interest rate that prevails in the overall economy, but why in the past year or so the Fed has been used to assist specific organizations, firms, and individuals. I think what the public is most outraged about at present, Judge, is the possibility that the Fed has been used as a tool to enrich, or at least to save the cookies, of certain specific people on Wall Street who are very cozy with the people who run the Fed.
One would think that the American public would have an appetite for wanting to know about that. I think it does. One would think that members of Congress would share the appetite of their constituents. And one would think that if that stuff comes out, the Fed would be in serious, serious trouble to sustain its secretive ways.
I think that's true. And, of course, the Fed, and Bernanke in particular as the leader and spokesman for the Fed, would like us to believe that there's currently an independent Fed, that is a Fed that operates interest apart from political partisanship or political interest or connection or influence, and that if Congress allows more scrutiny of Fed policymaking, then the upshot will be the politicization of the Fed. It'll be taken over, as it were, by members of Congress or the executive. But this is a complete red herring. The Fed has been politicized from its very inception, and the idea that it's independent will not bear scrutiny.
I think that they're worried that we might find that they've been doing such things, bailing out such people that are already fabulously wealthy, engaging perhaps in a foreign policy by loaning money to central banks of other countries at odds with what we believe are American interests or outside the realm of the Constitution, that maybe we'll decide that we don't need an independent Fed. We don't need a Fed that's subject to the winds of politics. We don't need a Fed at all.
Well, that would be their greatest fear, of course. As much as I would love to see the Fed abolished, Judge, I don't think the odds right now are very great that it will be. However, I think because of the public anger and uproar over the recession and the financial debacle that preceded it and accompanied it, I think there is now a substantial chance that more will be done to open up the Fed, to force it to reveal how it has reached decisions on policies it's implemented in the past and how and in the future, to reveal how it goes about arriving at the policies it will make.
Let's see. From 1776, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor. I'm now one of your students, and you've asked me a question. And the question is, what has the Fed done to the value of the dollar? Professor, from 1776 to 1913, the value of the dollar went up by 13%. We had no Fed. We had no central bank, with the exception of some small periods early on. From 1913 to 2009, the value of the dollar has gone down 92% during the reign of the Fed. Did I answer that question correctly, Professor?
That's about right, Judge. These long-term comparisons are a little iffy because we have to know something about the price level. It's very hard to know. But you're certainly in the right neck of the woods with those statements. Over the long haul, in the more than 100 years before the Fed was established in 1913, the value of the dollar, the purchasing power of the dollar, remained in the long run about the same. It went up and down because of the way wars were financed, but that would balance out over the long run, so that a dollar would buy you in 1900 about the same that it would buy you in 1800.
Right.
But right now, to buy what a dollar would buy you in 1900, you would need about $25. So,
well, you know, it's really no surprise. It's really no surprise that this has happened because of the Fed's concept of fiat money. And my understanding of that is if the Fed wants to loan money to, let's say, Citibank, it doesn't send bricks of gold to Citibank. It doesn't send bushelsfuls of cash to Citibank. It doesn't write a check to Citibank. It just adds some zeros onto the account that Citibank has with the Fed. Isn't that, by very definition, inflationary?
Certainly inflationary in the classic sense. For a long time, inflation was a word that meant an increase in the money supply. But in the past 100 years or so, it's been switched around so that inflation has come to mean a decline in the purchasing power of money. And the connection between that change in purchasing power and the number of dollars in existence has been obscured as a result. But it's certainly true that the Fed has the ability to create money, as the saying goes, out of thin air. They just enter additional reserve account amounts in someone's account at the Fed, a commercial bank's account there, and it's a done deal.
Let me see. I thought that the Constitution says that only the Congress can coin money. But yet we've created this Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor a reserve, this central bank, which issues us all of our cash and literally creates money out of thin air. Should anybody be surprised that if Ron Paul's bill passes, it may open up a historical and economic and even philosophical Pandora's box?
Oh, I think it would be a landmark if that bill were to pass. But, you know, I think we can certainly expect the Fed and its many friends. We shouldn't think that this is the Fed against the world. The Fed has many supporters in the government for good reason, because the Fed is a terrifically powerful source of funding for government programs, ultimately.
Keep people rich, and they'll keep voting for you. Professor Robert Higgs, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
You're welcome, Judge.